Hello and welcome to the Beyond the Essential Oil Recipe Summit. I'm Elizabeth Ashley, the Secret Healer, and today I'm very honoured to be speaking with Rehne Burge. Hello, Rehne.
Good morning, Liz. It's actually pronounced Burge. I may have forgotten to tell you that. Burge.
Get that again. I do apologise.
That's all right. That's all right. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, my lovely. How are you?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
And for anybody who is not familiar with you, can you tell us a little about your background? Tell us a bit about your life, because it's very relevant to your talk, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it is. My career, as far as my career, I'm a retired medical auditor, and I taught anatomy and physiology. And while I was doing that, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. This was probably about 10, 12 years ago, and was introduced to lavender essential oil, of all things, to kind of help with my pain. I actually found it through PubMed. I'm looking back, because I used that site for my medical auditing, and was trying to find something to help me with that. And fast forward, here I am, certified aromatherapist and retired medical auditor, although I dabble in it a little bit. And that's it. And it led me into aromatherapy.
Beautiful. And you have a very specialist area where you work with veterans. Can you tell us a bit about the work that you do and perhaps the history that brought you to that point?
I can. I work with them with PTSD, and this actually started, I have complex PTSD, but something I ignored for a long time. I knew the nightmares and everything was there, but I just, you know, sometimes it's easier just to ignore these things, or we think it is. And it didn't come to forefront until my youngest daughter was diagnosed with PTSD a few years ago. That ended up my researching on PTSD, and on one of the essential oil consumer report groups, I asked about PTSD and leads, and Scylla introduced me to Valerie Pelota, who is a remarkable lady. Her son Josh was a vet, and he committed suicide, and Valerie and I ended up together talking about PTSD, and wrote about it, and we become close friends. And she has Josh.org Foundation. I'll have to find out that information, but she's continued to help and work with vets that have PTSD.
Right.
And my own history is from my childhood. I have a night that I don't remember, and except one memory, and that is why I have day-night nightmares, I guess you could say. My attacks come on quick. They last about a minute. There's a lot of images. It's scary, and then they go away. And sometimes there can be 1 or a dozen or 15 hours of it. But I've been really blessed to have some great therapists that I work with, and my daughter also is really getting great therapy. But I'm very passionate about it, and that's my focus. That's where my focus is PTSD.
So I'm sure all of us are familiar with what PTSD is, but how does complex PTSD differ from just normal PTSD?
I think that in complex PTSD, in my case, of course, there's many, many different types, and PTSD is on a scale from 1 to 1,000. And in my case, I have no memory of, I had 3 major incidents in my childhood up to 12 years old. I'm sorry, I'm a little shaky when I talk about it. But the reason I have complex PTSD is there is about 12 hours in a night of many adults when I was taken to a house. And I don't remember it, and don't care to. And that's what makes it a little bit complex, you know, is that it's not there. So the images don't match, that goes through my head, don't match reality. And so there's a lot of complexity there. And but I'm in a really great place. I've had great therapists and great support, and support from up there, and from great people. So, but I'm still very passionate about it. And we're working with a vet right now. We were talking earlier about him. That was
tell the story you were telling me. Yeah.
The gentleman, I met a lady through a volunteer service that I do, and her husband has PTSD, and she met another gentleman through the VA, through the VA here in Hammond, Louisiana. Not a good situation, but you know, that's another subject. The gentleman was in a house where people were stealing his check and abusing him, and Lacey and her wonderful husband got together with a lot of people and gathered a whole lot of goods, found him a place to live that he won't have to pay for, and got furniture and kitchen stuff. And I'm going to be making PTSD inhalers for him and for Lacey's husband. And it's funny how everything just comes full circle. Mm-hmm. And I put a picture online if you want to see it. It's on my Facebook. The man received a lot of stuff last night, including a bed. He's laid out on the mattress, and it's the most beautiful sight to see the joy in his face. So, yeah, I'm pretty passionate about it.
I can see you started. I knew you'd start. I can't imagine how somebody who's given their life to their country like that could be treated in that manner. It's appalling. Such a stories.
It's beyond comprehension. And so that gives you an idea or an understanding that PTSD goes from our beloved vets to children, to adults, to physical, mental, and emotional abuse, and it's on many different scales. And it's a topic that isn't covered enough. It's a topic that that research doesn't cover enough, and it's my drive.
Well, thank goodness for people like you. You are such a brave woman, and so please do tell us about the work that you do with the oils. So how on earth do you go about helping somebody with those kind of issues? Where do you start?
Gosh, you know, Liz, you know, it all goes back to research. You have to start with research. Going back to my career as a medical auditor, I used, which, like I said earlier, that's how I found lavender essential oil, PubMed, PubChem, Science Direct. Those were all sites that, and other sites and books that I used in my career as a medical auditor. And it takes research. And I forgot what we were talking about, but it all starts there. You know, you have to anyway, my mind is elsewhere, so you'll have to get me back on track.
If a vet came to you and they were having displays or showing the symptoms of PTSD that clearly you would recognise, how does one start to treat somebody in that kind of situation? We look at the research, but what do we do when we look at the patient? What are we looking for?
We talk.
Mm-hmm.
We talk. We talk about what happened if they want to. It's amazing, though. It's amazing because when you sit down with people and you start talking to them, they really, really do want to open up. you know, and you talk to them. You talk to them and find out what they've been through, what symptoms they're dealing with, what you can do, whether it be through inhalers or topical or just sitting and listening to them, just opening your heart and letting them get it out. That is, I think that's the most important thing you can do for them. And that's what I do. We sit and we talk. And I'll cry and they'll cry. And most of the time, that's what happens. A lot of crying, a lot of hugging, and a lot of determination what that person needs emotionally, physically, and mentally, not just dramatically.
So what sort of symptoms are we likely to see then? So you'll see flashbacks. Well, what do we see on a physical level?
On a physical level, from my perspective and my daughter's perspective, and this is kind of mixing the two together, you know, you get really, really hot and start sweating. Your heartbeat starts just pounding very hard. In her case, the panic ensues, like everything around her scares her, and her fingers curl in, her toes curl in, almost like a seizure. And in my case, I start getting hot, my heart starts pounding, I start having images that flash, and then I just sit, because then I lose reality for about a minute or so. And the remarkable thing about it, though, through great therapy, I used to fight, bite, beat you up if you tried to come near me. And now I'm open to being hugged and held. And that is why, that is the difference from being the child, my hand's shaking, let me put it down, from being the child that I was in my adult nightmares to becoming the grown woman that no longer bundles like a child, but runs to safety. That happened with one attack, and it went from me fighting and beating on my husband to running to him in the other room and jumping in his lap in shock and holding on to him. And we worked through it. And that was a huge turnaround. And that's where I hope people can get, is find that turnaround.
It must have terrified your husband as well as you, to witness you in that kind of distress.
It terrifies him and my son, who's witnessed a good friend of mine, Bonnie Blazevich. She'll hear her name on here. She is.
Hi, Bonnie.
She's a former colleague from many years ago and from my medical career, and she sat with me and prayed over me for 4 hours one time through a text. So it's frightening for people that witness them, but I have a lot of good support, and they get through it, and they know I've grown and I'm doing much better. And people can get there with the right care and love. They really can. They can. So
clearly you went through a great deal of therapy, and I can't imagine that there would ever be enough therapy in the world to put right what happened to you. But what about essential oils? So is there ones that recur often, or how do you go about choosing which oil to use with somebody?
You know, I did intense research when all this came about, and you know, there's a list of oils in an article I wrote on PTSD and the olfactory system. That's on my website, solelysensualsduo.com. And there's a list of oils, including, of course, a wonderful study on lavender and hoe wood and many others in the article. I couldn't possibly sit here and name them, but how they affect the olfactory system and how they can help the symptoms. There's certainly not a cure. A cure comes from deep inside and actually trying to face and deal with our demons. But the oils are remarkable in fighting the symptoms, and have slowed my symptoms down, and helped mine and my daughters and a few vets we've worked with. And I just keep handing out these inhalers, like, I'll give them to anybody, just try them. They're so remarkable.
So hoe wood, I would never have thought of hoe wood in a million years. So why is hoe wood in there?
I don't have it in front of me. Hoe wood is very calming and is very, it's just very grounding. It's very centering for me. The official words I couldn't tell you, but that's what it does for me. You'd have to look at the article to get the official.
We'll put a link. We'll definitely put a link to it for you as well, so people can look. But so when somebody's sitting in front of us, ideally, then we're looking to relax and soothe them, are we? Is that the way forward?
Relax, soothe, calm, talk to them, love them. You know as well as I do, aromatic treatment is also how we handle people, how we touch. Touch is so important. It's so M technique. I've read Jane Buckles. I have her book, Clinical Aromatherapy. M technique is, I have a massage table. I certainly am not trained in it, but I do have people. I have a friend who comes here who is has PTSD. But also is between cancer treatments. We don't use essential oils, but we use carriers and touch. It's so important. It's really important.
And so why do you choose inhalers over other treatments?
Inhalers go right to me, and look, I'm only been in this business a short time, so from everything I've researched, it goes just right to the through the olfactory system to the, let me see if I say this all right, the limbic system, and gets to work on the emotional and mental turmoil going on inside. It's quicker than topical. Inhalation just gets right to those emotional things going on.
So what I'm struggling to get a handle on myself, and that's me being dim, nothing else. When somebody comes to you, are we purely looking to get them more relaxed, or are there other aspects of the PTSD that we think all the oils could help with that too?
Boy, oh boy. We know what they do for the emotional part of our body. We know that they work on the central nervous system. So there's stress, there's sleep that we try to pursue, because so many of them don't get those good night's sleep, just to be able to go into the day. First thing in the morning, I hit my inhaler, especially if I can feel those little butterflies going on inside when I first wake up my eyes. That's all the things that we look for, just to give them an easier day by day, minute by minute, minute by minute.
And when you say minute by minute, do we treat them somewhat differently? Do they have another treatment for when they're having an attack? Or do they use the same treatment right across the board as like a preventative soothing measure?
I don't think essential oil should ever be maintenance or preventative, Liz, but in the case of PTSD, I am a strong believer in, if you have PTSD, you know personally your scale where you're at, 1 to that 1,000th or whatever it is. And you have to determine, do I need that to start my day? In my case, I start my day. You know, I read, gosh, a few years back, I forgot who, I want to say I read it through Scylla's books or somewhere, about Dr. Jean Valnet. And he made a statement in his book that you no longer get immune or used to, I shouldn't use the word immune, I have to be careful with that, used to essential oils, or can no longer benefit from essential oils than you would an organic apple. And that statement has stayed so strong with me. And I go back to, I don't believe they're used for maintenance, and they shouldn't be. For PTSD, if you think you need that inhaler up in the mornings, get up and use it.
Whatever gets you through the day, literally.
And I do. But it's all personal. Where your PTSD, where your anxiety is, it's all personal.
So what kind of oils do you use for yourself?
For myself, oh goodness, I use the formula, or it is a formula. You know, we see drop, but just a real quick jump back. I chart all of my oils and I look at them from a formula perspective, and I'm certainly not a chemist or anything, but and so my recipe or my blend is on my site, and that's what I use for me. Same thing I use for everybody else. Nothing special for me. What works for me is what I use for everyone.
So you use a sort of a tailored blend over and over with different people?
I do. I
Ah,
do. Unless they have other symptoms or other causatives going on besides or related to the PTSD
mm,
that may also need to be addressed. You know, we're talking about PTSD only, and we know it branches out to so many other things, IBS, fibromyalgia.
yeah. And actually, that is the basis of both Kathy Skipper's and Dr. Florian Birkmeyer's talks, that what effect that trauma will have on you later in life. Florian talks about addiction, and Kathy talks about how that's going to manifest in your menopause, which delightful, I have to say. I'm having a great time with mine. But yeah, and it's fascinating what they I'll probably spoil it if nobody's watched it, but you know how you were talking about how you and your daughter get very, very hot, and they talk about that, the effects that how trauma creates that hotness in the body, and it's like an alchemical process of transformation. That with an alchemy, like if you're making essential oils, for example, you need that heat to bring about that transformation. And they were saying, Kathy was saying, you know, that's the perfect description of what happens to you in a hot flush. And if you can stay in that hot flush and be able to witness and say, actually, what am I feeling? What is the trauma? Then you have caught yourself in that very moment. And so I can see how it would be the same with PTSD.
It is. It's just, well, there's the heat. And not until you mentioned it made me think about back in my menopausal days, which I'm, you know, probably still there, but I'm not having those hot flashes. But yeah, when the night sweats, you know, think about the night sweats that women have when they're in menopause. And that's what it feels like, your own personal summer all of a sudden coming on. Mine happens so quick, I can't think of what can I do to cool down. It's there, it's done, it's gone. But yeah, that's what it feels like, a hot flash. Women can relate.
I really enjoy watching Kathy's lecture then, because she does a whole section about the hot flush. She's got then a whole section about the night sweats and its relationship with water. So obviously the hot flushes are the fire, then you've got the water that comes around, and the healing sort of process of the alchemy. So I think it's very interesting, because it's clearly just the same thing playing out in a different way with you, isn't it?
It sounds like it. That, you know, I really don't know, and I'm really anxious to listen or read about that. That's just fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so if you were to give people sort of 3 top tips then for treating people with PTSD, what would they be? I'm guessing touch and listen would be high up there, but what else?
Touch and listen, and wait on the oils until you understand. Read about them. Don't go there until you understand. Touch, listen, and just be emotional support. Be emotional support. And that's right now, I find that that's, especially with vets, they need to talk. They want someone to understand. They want someone to listen. They want someone to listen and care. And that's the most important thing you can do for anyone that has PTSD. Just listen. That's the only advice I have.
I think it's tremendous advice. And when you're talking about getting to know the oils better, in what sort of ways is it helpful to know an oil? Because I'm guessing that we're way out of the realm of chemistry here. So,
you know, education is needed, and if you don't understand how they work and how they can help you really understand, and the safety of essential oils, there are clinical aromatherapists through NAHA, through AIA, through so many channels that can give great consultations and great guidance. And you can also learn about schools and free classes, webinars. There's so many great webinars, YouTube videos by experts in the industry. Learn a little bit about them first, and then use them, or find someone to guide you to use them until you do. We see too many times where safety has really led to some serious issues, and that's the other thing I'm pretty passionate about. And all of us are in this industry.
I would say that was true. Going not so much on the subject of safety, but on the subject of therapy. Sometimes with somebody who has these sort of really complex issues, you'll see them sort of going a bit backwards sometimes when they're using essential oils as they're going through the healing process. Do you ever get to see that with PTSD, like a healing crisis?
When I first started this, when I first started my therapy, let me put it that way, I didn't have attacks too often. They were every now and then through my life. And for the very first several years of my life, I didn't even know they were attacks. They were images that would come and go really quick. When I went through therapy, through the first year, it got worse.
Right.
Actually, the first year and a half, it got worse. And before they got better. So there's a big hill to climb, but if you can get up the hill, there is a way to get down, and that's it.
When you talk about it getting worse, a year is a long time for things to be getting worse. How did your therapist motivate you to keep engaged with the therapy? Because I'm sure it would have been easy to run away from it if it was getting worse. What was it that kept you engaged?
I went to a couple different therapists. The first one, we talked about my childhood. That's when it really came out, and I discovered that I was an empath. And I didn't even understand what that word meant, and a healer, and I had no idea what that meant. I mean, the only healer I ever knew was Jesus Christ himself. And so understanding what was going on with me all these years, and facing it instead of running from it, that was key. Understanding why you have fibromyalgia, understanding why you have IBS, what's going on that makes you sad and depressed. And it wasn't until I faced all that all the monsters and the everything really got bad, but then they got better. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does completely. And so you feel that the fibromyalgia and the IBS is probably related to this?
Oh yes. I absolutely do. All of the illnesses that my daughter faces still daily. And the symptoms that I face, and I see it with other people with PTSD and other issues, that, yeah, it's definitely in my point of view, very much related.
And so those physical complaints, when that healing's taking place and the demons are coming out the wardrobe, do those physical symptoms get worse as well?
My fibro got really bad. My anxiety got really bad. But my fibromyalgia is almost non-existent now.
Really? Because
yes. Yeah. Yes. Now, if that's the bottom line, why it's better, I don't know, but I'm going to take it. I wanted to mention too, and I cannot remember the video now, but there was a video I saw sometime back, a good year ago, where a healer, a gentleman, went to the rainforest, and he took 10 people with him. 9 people came back with him healed. One died of cancer. He had stage 4 cancer when he went there, and he passed away. But they went and they faced so many demons. And I just really want to find that video so I can share it in the future. And they all said that when they came home, and this was a few years later, that they all came home symptom-free and able to live their life. One of them had IBS, panic disorder, PTSD wasn't mentioned, but a panic disorder, and I don't remember the others, but it was pretty intense. And
so this was, I'm guessing, some kind of shamanic journey that they'd been on, rather than taking the medicinal plants, was it?
Yes, I know that there were plants in the rainforest used, but what was used, and there were rituals of sitting around and but it was interesting. I have to find that.
I have to say, I know very little about shamanism, but you see that come up a lot in Native American medicine as well, don't you? With the for the sweat lodges and that sort of facing the demons in the steam. I think.
Yes, you do, and shaman. That's I remember that's what it was called, and I never was sure how to pronounce that. So,
well, and I think that it's. I think you say shaman in America, but I think that that's a very poignant point actually, because really in our Western medicine we don't have a framework for that catharsis, do we? So you see it in like Native American medicine, you see it in a lot of the Eastern medicines where they go to a place that is specifically for that healing journey, where they do face the demons within their tribe and they come out refreshed. But in our society we don't have that framework.
No, we don't. We have a lot of pharmaceutical drugs that people tend to more turn to than natural medicine, and people like you and I hope to change that, or at least make awareness.
I'd love to share with you, if you don't mind me hijacking your interview.
Do go ahead.
So I have always had chronic periods every day, and I came across some Mayan medicine where they do a steam, they call it a yoni steam or a vaginal steam, where they tackle this steam with the medicinal plants, tackles the trauma that lies within your uterus. So in actual fact, all of the females, as soon as they reach puberty, steam every month, but most definitely in things like voodoo medicine, they steam immediately after somebody's been raped, or they've had a terrible trauma. Immediately they're stuck on the steam pot, and they have just herbs that you would just immediately think of, so lavender, rose, calendula. And I feel robbed that I was never taught this in my training. And I'm not kidding you, 1 week of doing this steaming completely changed my dream time. So no more nightmares, much more peaceful sleep at night. I felt so much better about myself from an internal sort of oxytocin, I love myself point of view, but also no more period problems. And it was phenomenal to me that I had gone through my whole life and nobody had said to me, you need to steam your vagina, girl. But they have that framework in place to look after women from that vulnerable point of view, which we just don't have. And it was this cleansing steam, like the sweat lodges, that made all the difference in the world.
Well, I hope the ladies out there listening, it's time to steam our coochies.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Get your flu on the loo.
That's fantastic.
It's in so many medicinal cultures for trauma, in particular female trauma, for things like PTSD, for rape, for abuse. Always they're steaming.
That is fascinating. And you know what, that makes me, it makes sense. Now, as far as the emotional and mental aspect of it, I am so ready to do a steam and check that out. But it makes me think about the sitz baths. I wrote an article on sitz baths and the importance of it. And that's on my website too. And my gosh, all the female issues we have in a good sitz bath, ain't nothing like it. But I love that.
We'll talk about that, because I've never really felt the need to sit bath. So convert me. So what are the benefits of that?
Well, like vaginal infections, getting over surgeries, of course, when the doc gives us the okay on it, and using healing essential oils in the right carrier, and just making, either running your bathtub real low, or they actually have what you can sit on the commode, little sit tubs that you can fill, and you just sit your little self down in there and let it heal. Let those healing elements heal your little butt or whatever else is going on down there. And I explained it more in my article.
I love it. Well, I think that, and we, in amongst all of the internet pages, there are very few out there talking about that, and that's very helpful medicine.
It is. It is. Oh my gosh. You know, well, I won't go into detail. I have issues with hemorrhoids, and there is nothing, issues with issues, and there is nothing like sitting in a sitz bath.
Oh, bless.
It's okay.
I knew this conversation was going to end up in a
look, those hemorrhoids are from having too big of babies and getting too fat while I was prego.
Me too. I remember. Do you know the comedian Victoria Woods? Do you have her stuff over there?
No, I hadn't heard of her.
You must look her up on YouTube. Sadly, she died last year. But she is just one of the funniest ladies you'll ever hear. And I remember her saying, "Oh, I had my daughter," she said, "and I rang my mum and said, my hemorrhoid so big, knit 2 hats." I thought, yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay, what was her name? Never mind. I'll listen to this interview and catch her name.
Victoria Wood.
I love it. I love it. And you know, you know, female issues aren't talked about enough. We suffer through a lot of things after childbirth and all, and we need these steams, and we need these sit baths, and we need some coochie love for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? After this, I've decided I'm going to do a video that's going to go in for people that buy the package of recordings. I'm going to do a video on steaming your flu, girls. So if you're looking about that, I'm going to show people how to do it. Obviously not graphically, but and the nice thing is, you know, they say don't use essential oils, and they say don't use it because they say the essential oils are too astringent. Well, that's nonsense. We sit in essentials in the bath, isn't it? That's an internet thing. But actually, when you use the herbs, it is a really different experience. So it's lovely to just go around the garden and go, I'll have a bit of that, I'll have a bit of that, I'll have a bit of that. So yeah, that'll be a nice video. I'll do that.
Oh yeah, that will be nice. A good friend of mine, Cindy Sell, is master herbalist in California, and she sent me some amazing bath flowers, and it's just, you can't beat them. You can't beat them.
And so that might be something lovely to add to your PTSD medicine chest, if you like, because I think it is really helpful.
I'm anxious to see and hear about this more. That's amazing.
So we've got inhalers, and we've got massage. Anything else that you use in your practice?
Chest rubs. I make blends. I don't advertise what I make a lot. It's on my website if you want to go there. Most of what I use is through volunteer and for personal use, and I sell it when people buy it, but it's not something I push. I love writing and pursuing PTSD, and you know, that's been more my focus. That's why I pursued this, was for my health, not to make money. Making a little money would be nice, but you know, I'm not going to make a fortune out of it, that's for sure.
Wow, do you know what? I think the richness of life as well is sometimes a whole lot more important. I used to earn less amount of money when I worked in an office, and it was just not like this life.
No, and you know, medical auditing, I almost killed myself doing it. I loved it, but I worked 60, 70 hours a week, and I was glad to put it behind, and I love my aromatic career in life.
Well, personally, I'm completely humbled to meet you, and I just think that the life path that you've come through is extraordinary, and that you even get up in the morning is amazing to me. But the fact that you go and help all these people that are in such a terrible, terrible state of life, I'm so grateful to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Before you end up in floods of tears, and so do I. Tell people where they can find you. Tell them a bit about your lovely blog.
I am at www.soulessentialsduo.com. I have the group Aromatherapy by Soul Essentials Duo. It's non-brand. It's about learning safety and sharing stories, and it's a pretty simple little group on Facebook. And you can find me on Facebook if you want a friend and chat. And it's just
chats. Goodness me, she chats.
I really do. You know, I tell people all the time I'm shy, and I am, but I talked my head off.
Before we go, just tell everybody what your cat's name is and why.
Okay, so we had a dog named Dog that ended up both, and we had a cat that we named Cat that was a stray. It didn't work for Dexter, Liz's son, and so Dexter liked Jeffrey, and we don't know if Jeffrey is a girl or a boy, but Jeffrey is now Cat's name. So,
But also, she refuses to call him by its proper name. He tells us it's Jeff, not Jeff.
Okay, so Jeff when Jeffrey's in trouble. How's that, Jeff?
Yeah. That's like me. I'm Elizabeth when I'm in trouble.
Oh gosh, I'm never in trouble. So.
Oh, right.
I lied.
Well, darling, I've loved it, and thank you so much. And I'm sure that people will get in touch with you if they need any help. But I hope that they do. And so say bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, love.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, Liz.